Everybody, how's it going? It's me, Logan Joyce, aka Suburban Yinzer. So, this video is going to be called My Grandfather Was the Mayor of Southside for a Day. So, my grandfather, Master Sergeant Jerome Milton Joyce, aka Timenians Mooch, was in the Air Force from 1954 to 1975. And 50 years ago today, September 1st, 1975, he retired after 30 years in the United States military when he was 47 years old. So for many Yins watching this, I wanted to make this video because I wanted to commemorate my grandfather's service, but I also wanted to incorporate a wee bit of Southside history, Pittsburgh history, because many Yins probably watching my channel are going to think to yourself, well, where's all the Pittsburgh Yinzer content, Logan? Well, since the channel's called Suburban Yinzer, I primarily spend most of my time in the suburbs of Pittsburgh. It's hard for me to relocate to the city at times during the work week, so I try to incorporate Pittsburgh history into my channel as much as I can, if it's possible. But the reason why I say he was the mayor of Southside for a day is because I have a proclamation, legitimate, from Mayor Pete Flaherty 50 years ago on September 1st, 1975. This is the legit document. I'm going to read it, so bear with me. This car situation, ladies and gentlemen, is very hard, but I'm going to try to open this whole thing up, the scroll, because it is the coolest thing I've ever seen, and it's a piece of my family history that I absolutely love. So, a proclamation. Be it proclaimed that Master Sergeant Jerome M. Joyce, having spent over 28 years in the service of his country, well, 28, because it was 30 off and on, but I combine it as 30, okay? In many months, days, and hours in service towards the preservation and betterment of his community, is hereby appointed Mayor of Southside to serve in this capacity for the space of 24 hours on the first day of September in the year 1975. I do so proclaim, as witnessed by my hand and seal, Pete Flaherty, Mayor of Pittsburgh. And I have, oh my God. Yins are probably thinking to yourself, you're not really organized, Logan. Well, I'm doing it in a car, okay? I'm making a video in a car. Give me a break. But this is the seal of Pittsburgh, and this is Mayor Pete Flaherty's signature. Right down there. You see it? Look at that. Bam! So, that is a super cool piece of family history right there. I mean, it's legitimate. It's legitimate. If Yins want a picture of it, I'll take a picture if Yins don't believe me. If you're doubting that, Logan, that ain't true. It's pretty true. I mean, Pete Flaherty wouldn't have done that for no reason. Now, many Yins probably are thinking to yourselves, well, Logan, how did your grandfather even know Pete Flaherty? Well, it goes all the way back to the Irish ancestry, because many Yins probably don't know that Mayor Pete, who was mayor of Pittsburgh from 1970 to 1977, was 100% Irish Catholic. Mayor Pete, his father was named Pete, and his mother was named Anna O'Toole. They were both immigrants from Galway, Ireland, County Galway. Mayor Pete's parents lived a very, very long time. They both lived to 100 plus years old. So he had some really strong genetics and DNA. Good Irish genes. Mayor Pete was born Peter Francis Flaherty II, born June 25th, 1924 in Northside, and died on April 18th, 2005. Pete knew my grandfather from the olden days, and Pete's dad knew my great-great-grandfather Martin Joyce and my great-grandfather Walter Joyce through the AOH, the Ancient Order of Hibernians, an Irish Catholic fraternal organization. And a lot of Irish Catholics back then, predominantly today too, are very involved into that organization. Now, as it pertains to my grandfather, back to his career, My grandfather, Mooch, served in the Navy from 1945 to 1953 during World War II and the Cold War and the Korean War. And then he transferred to the Air Force in 1954 to 1975 during the Cold War in Vietnam. And actually, he served at Benoit Air Force Base in Benoit, Vietnam from 66 to 67. Well, now, what did my grandfather do in the Air Force that was such a big deal for Mayor Pete, the Pittsburgh mayor? Why would he commemorate and acknowledge my grandfather as the mayor of Southside for a day, 50 years ago today? What was this big commemoration and big celebration about? Well, I'll tell you. So, I have legitimate newspaper articles here commemorating my grandfather's career. I'm not going to read all of it because many yins will be like, but regardless, for the ones that are interested, I'll just read this. My grandfather estimated, and this is from the Reporter on Wednesday, September 10th, 1975. My grandfather estimated during his 12 years as an active recruiter, so Air Force recruiter, he helped over 1,700 people begin successful careers by enlisting them in the Air Force. He noted that during his first year as a recruiter, he missed his quota of almost 300 people to one. So he had to recruit his first year, 1960. He had to recruit 300 people, but he only recruited 299. Wow. Dang. You know what I mean? And also, another record established as an Air Force recruiter at the time, primarily in a metropolitan area, is driving over 150,000 miles without a reportable accident. And it says down here that that my grandfather planned to retire in Pittsburgh and has been named honorary mayor of Southside by Pittsburgh Mayor Pete Flaherty on September 1st. Sergeant Joyce served with distinction as honorary mayor for 24 hours and has served our country for the last 28 years. 30, but he was counting. Mayor Flaherty said in a letter of congratulations, which I gotta find that letter. I have it in my house. Quote, "You should be proud of your long and impressive record of achievement in the military service, most particularly of your highly successful efforts in recruitment." And a lot of my relatives on my grandmother's side of the family, Rose Gelati Joyce, a lot of her relatives were recruited by my grandfather because, why not? So, on August 29th, 1975, a couple days before his retirement, they had a retirement party at the Old Croatian Hall on 411 South 27th Street in Southside. And it says retirement party in honor of Master Sergeant Jerome M. Joyce, Friday evening, August 29th, 1975. And it said, well, regardless. I mean, I'm putting the pictures up while I'm talking a wee bit. But while yins are looking at the pictures, I have a Department of the Air Force, basically, what is this, like a medal commemoration? Basically, when he was awarded the Meritorious Service Medal for his retirement from the Air Force, it said that Master Sergeant Jerome Milton Joyce for meritorious service from October 10th, 1967 to August 31st, 1975, signed by George McGee, Lieutenant General, U.S. Air Force Commander, Air Training Command, and the Secretary of the Air Force, John L. McClouse. I don't know, something like that. But regardless, it says here that he was a recruiter, salesman, and Sector A supervisor, Detachment 210, 352nd U.S. Air Force Recruiting Group, stationed out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Now, what's amazing and what I love about my grandfather, why I'm so proud of him, I never met the man, but I know a lot about him, as you can tell. I hold him up to a higher standard because when my grandfather retired from the Air Force, he could have moved anywhere in the country. He had the ability, he had the pension, he had all of the means to do it, but he stayed in Southside. He stayed loyal to his community, stayed loyal to his family. He didn't want to abandon his roots and abandon his neighborhood that he was born and raised and lived his whole life in. Southside was an absolute headquarters from not only my grandfather, but my whole dad's side of the family. And that's why Mayor Pete Flaherty made my grandfather the honorary mayor of Southside for 24 hours on September 1st, 1975. Because anybody that knew my grandfather at the time or still remembers him, many Yins probably do, he loved his Southside. He loved the neighborhood. He loved the community. He was such an honorable man. Not only served his country, but served his community, served his neighbors. He held Southside to such a special place in his heart. It really was a sentimental feeling. No matter where he traveled in the world, no matter if it was Asia, Europe, Africa, Antarctica, or any part of the world that he visited in his 30-year military career, he always was a Southsider at heart. To the day he died, 30 years ago in 95, he was always a Southsider. And that's what I'm proud about. I'm proud that my grandfather was such a prominent figure in that community. And not only the community, but the city of Pittsburgh. That the mayor of Pittsburgh, Pete Flaherty, was that taken back and that proud that he had a person living in his city that was my grandfather. I mean, Pete Flaherty didn't have to do that. He did not have to go out of his way as mayor of Pittsburgh to do that, but he did. Because he knew, as a World War II veteran from the Army Air Corps, Pete knew that my grandfather made a honorable, or lived an honorable life, serving for 30 years in the military during 3 wars. 1 war, 2 police actions to be specific. But regardless, my grandfather gave the majority of his life in his youth to the United States of America. And that's why me, Logan Joyce, who shares his name, I am so proud to call that man my grandfather. But anyway, I would like to thank Yins very much for watching this video. I hope Yins really enjoyed it. And that's it. Peace.